Breaking news. Ethiopian forces continue to bombard Mekelle with a new round of airstrike hitting the capital twice at 3 a.m. in the afternoon. There had been 3 rounds of airstrikes, including yesterday's attack, injured 9 civilians, including a 5-year-old girl. The first round of airstrike took place on Monday, killing 3 children and injuring several civilians. Hello, I'm here with the hour's news from Tigray TV. I'm Mary Nimano, will be reading the news for you today. Stay tuned. Proceeding to the details. The Ethiopian National Defense Forces have bombarded Mekelle 4 times this week. After 2 consecutive bombardments on Monday hit farmland and an open market, killing 3 civilians and injuring several. A 3rd round of airstrikes yesterday had injured several civilians. Our reporters were at our hospital speaking with the doctors treating the patients. Reporter Aura Hagaratsensei has more.
The Ethiopian National Defense Forces have bombarded Mekelle for the 3rd time in 2 days, after 2 consecutive bombardments on Monday, hitting farmland and an open market, killing 3 civilians and injuring several. Mekelle was hit once again at 10:25 in the morning, in close proximity to Mekelle Hospital and Hamlin Fistula Center. Dr. Mohammed Tuha, a resident surgeon at either hospital, says 9 injured civilians had so far reached the hospital.
9 injured civilians from the airstrike have been admitted to our hospital so far, among whom 1 is severely injured and his bones broken. The bombardment targeted civilians residents as there was no military bases, nor was it anywhere near the war fronts. The world, including Ethiopians, should put pressure on the Ethiopian government to stop targeting civilians.
Dr. Hagos Godifai, head of Tigray's Bureau of Health, visited the wounded at Eider Hospital and has described the situation as a continuation of the genocidal campaign on Tigray.
This airstrike is the continuation of similar bombardments in the past few days, targeting civilians in Mekelle and its surroundings. This is part of the genocidal campaign on the people of Tigray. The international community should take practical measures to avoid targeting of civilians.
The airstrikes on Wednesday had injured 9 civilians, including children and a pregnant woman currently receiving treatment at the hospital. The air bombardment continues on Thursday afternoon in the middle of Mekelle, and casualties are yet to be investigated.
4 airstrikes hit the capital city of Tigray this week, killing and injuring civilians as well as damaging civilian property. Our reporters were on the ground to observe some of the damage on civilian property caused due to Wednesday's airstrikes. Reporter Bethlehem Ayala has more on this.
Wednesday morning at 10:24 a.m., Mekelle was hit by yet another round of airstrike that landed near a residential area, damaging several homes of Mekelle city residents.
We didn't expect that an airstrike would hit us, but it did. We can barely handle the hunger. Now our home is destroyed. This is genocide.
It was around 10:25 in the morning when the jet hit. We'd been gathering to drink coffee. Everything in our house is destroyed now.
It's illegal to attack civilians. They are attacking us because they are losing in the battlefield. I was with my children in our home when the airstrike happened. Thanks to God we are alright, but our home is destroyed.
Since Monday, October 18, 2021, Mekelle has been hit by 3 airstrikes, killing 3 and injuring 15 civilians. But Mekelle city residents say their spirits are not broken.
We will not break down to the will of fascists. We have starved and are starving, but we will not lose hope till the very end. We will win.
The United Nations and other members of the international community have commended airstrikes that took place on Monday, but are yet to go beyond the rhetorical commendations towards the decisive actions.
The United Nations is evacuating hundreds of its humanitarian personnel from Tigray. Deputy spokesperson for the UN, Farhan Haq, said that while the United Nations and humanitarian partners are staying and delivering humanitarian aid, that a small proportion of the UN team has been relocated, and that around 100 UN staff and 17 dependents. He also added that the World Organization has almost 400 staff members left in Tigray supporting humanitarian interventions. The spokesperson also said that nearly 5.2 million people across Tigray, meaning 90% of the population, is in need of life-saving assistance. In a statement released on Tuesday, the United Nations condemned the airstrike on Ma'ala and confirmed the death of 3 civilians. The Ethiopian government had initially denied the attack, but later confirmed its involvement, saying that the airstrike had hit its intended target. On a related matter, State Department and officials from the European Union released a statement sharing their concern and said that act violates international humanitarian law and human rights law. Tigray Inter-Religious Council condemns the airstrike on Ma'ala that hit the Addi Hakke market and Meso in the outskirts of Ma'ala, and made a call to the international human rights groups and the international community to do its part to put an end to the genocidal mission of the Ethiopian government. The council said that there are neither combatants nor any military installations that warrant the bombardment of Ma'ala. They also noted that human rights violations have been a norm throughout the conflict, saying that unspeakable atrocities such as gang rapings, lootings, and massacres have been recurrent and are still occurring in the areas under the control of Ethiopian forces and their allies. Getachew Redda, a member of the Tigray Central Command, had a brief stay with us on Direct Talk this week. He discussed the aerial bombardment of Ma'ala and the siege on Tigray that is now on its 4th month. Reporter Abel Zagawu has more on this.
Getachew Redda, a member of Tigray Central Command, gave an interview to Tigray television regarding the aerial bombardment of Ma'ala, but says he wasn't surprised by Abiy Ahmed's actions.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to express my condolences to those who have lost their loved ones as a result of this heinous crime by Abiy Ahmed's mercenaries. Having said that, though, I wasn't surprised at all that this did happen, because Abiy has left no stone unturned to make sure the people of Tigray perished. Launching airstrikes is only part of the entire anti-Tigray genocidal campaign and the entire military cum starvation as a weapon of war paraphernalia that has been perfected into an art form. So I wasn't surprised at all.
He asked that the international community go beyond paying lip service and back their condolences with decisive actions, saying his government's priority is the unconditional lifting of the siege.
So the kinds of situation we are witnessing in Tigray is quite unparalleled compared to the kind of famine-like conditions, they say, that the rest of the world might have witnessed so far. The UN has yet to come up with a clear position as to whether what is happening in Tigray is indeed famine. So they are using this semantic acrobatics where they refer to the situation as famine-like conditions, where in actual fact children are dying by their scores, like I said. And tomorrow it was going to be by their hundreds and by their thousands, by their tens of thousands. So to the extent that the UN system has not done enough to back its promise with action, I'm not putting the blame entirely on the UN system, because Abiy has told them point blank that he would not relent on his chokehold on Tigray unless some of his irrational demands are met. We are fighting because we have to break the siege that has been imposed on the people of Tigray. We are fighting not because we have territorial ambitions, not because we have ambitions of power. We have made it abundantly clear. We have none of those. We are fighting simply because our people are suffering, and we have to break the siege, possibly peacefully. If not, will arm twist Abiy Ahmed into accepting our simple demands. Lift the siege.
He also said that the lives of hundreds of thousands, especially children, are in danger if the siege on Tigray should continue, and that the government of Tigray is ready to negotiate with any party in the event that siege is lifted.
And we know thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of lives are in danger. So we'll negotiate with the devil if that's what it takes to ensure the safety and security of our people. But the most basic minimum, as far as we're concerned, is that any negotiation will come up with a direct and unconditional lifting of the siege on the people of Tigray. And there is no infrastructural challenge that stands in the way of the lifting of the siege. What it requires is a political decision on the part of a single individual, Abiy Ahmed, to just tell his lieutenants to go ahead with lifting the siege. As simple as that.
Getachew also stated that his government will take whatever measures to ensure the fast and unconditional lifting of the siege, and Tigray's government willingness to work with the international community to address the humanitarian challenge, not only in Tigray but also in Afar and Amhara regions.
There is no chance whatsoever that they could survive and live another day to come and terrorize the people of Tigray. So whether they like it or not, we'll continue to push to take whatever action is necessary to lift the siege, to break the siege imposed on the people of Tigray, and we'll continue to extend the olive branch and at the same time use the sticks, which have so far proved more effective than the carrots. So if there is an opportunity that presents itself for us to sit and address this issue through dialogue, well and good. If it doesn't, we'll continue to use the sticks appropriately so we can break the siege and work with the international community to help them address the humanitarian challenge in Tigray. So the humanitarian challenge is also now engulfing the Amhara region, and we'll be more than willing to work with the international community, not only to support the people of Tigray, but also those in Afar, in Amhara, who also need humanitarian aid.
Finally, Getachew shared his message to international partners looking to mediate in the conflict.
Our demands are quite simple. They should be able to understand the complexity of the problem, and they should be able to understand that Abiy has from the get-go been part of the problem. And third, they shouldn't read from Abiy's talking points. They should come up with original ideas of how they can deal with the problem in a manner that would benefit, first and foremost, those who have found themselves at the receiving end of Abiy's genocidal campaign.
Tigray External Affairs Office issued its weekly briefing discussing the overall humanitarian and socio-economic crises in Tigray and the aerial bombardment of Mekelle. The briefing highlighted that 2.3% of children are suffering from severe malnutrition, a figure higher than a global emergency threshold. Reporter Abel Zagabo has more on this.
According to the brief, the situation in Tigray remains horrific. Despite humanitarian partners in Tigray said a minimum of 282 trucks are needed to arrive into Tigray to reach the millions in need of emergency assistance. Ethiopian government continues to obstruct humanitarian operations, permitting just 211 trucks between October 6 and 12. The brief also states the devastating food insecurity in Tigray. With reference of OCHA's findings, the brief indicates that 105,000 children, including 54,000 young girls, were screened for malnutrition. 2.3 of these children were diagnosed with severe acute malnutrition, a figure higher than the global emergency threshold. The briefing also says that no fuel tanker has been allowed into Tigray, even though humanitarian partners need about 272,000 liters per month to undertake humanitarian operation. Consequently, humanitarian agencies have reduced water tracking service in the central and northern west zones, affecting thousands of Tigrayans. The briefing also takes a look at the aerial bombing of Mekelle and states the airstrikes come on the heel of backbreaking of battlefield losses, saying the war crimes had become second nature to Abiy Ahmed's government. The briefing also emphasized that the international community should condemn the repeated violation of international norms and standards.
UN estimates that there are over 2.2 million IDPs in Tigray, with well over half that number displaced from western Tigray alone, where Amhara regional forces are committing ethnic cleansing. Our reporters were found in Gitjet in the southeastern part of Tigray, where IDPs are now finding it difficult to satisfy the basic needs like food and medical care. Reporter Aragawi has more on this.
It's been almost a year since the Ethiopian government and its allies waged a war against ethnic Tigrayans, resulting in the displacement of millions from different parts of Ethiopia, including western Tigray, and the harassment of Tigrayans in other parts of Ethiopia. Millions of Tigrayans displaced from their homes have been forced to take shelter in towns and cities across different parts of Tigray, where food and medical supplies have already run out and will be running out soon. Gidget, in the southeastern part of Tigray, is just one of the cities where IDPs taking shelter has already run out of many essential items.
I came here with 6 members of my family. I thought my sons had taken refuge in Sudan. They were displaced to my Hansa. We found each other after months, only to starve together. We only received aid once in July. Now we are in a great danger.
I was displaced from Humara with 6 members of my family. Most of the people who were displaced with us are dispersed to Yachila and Magala. They walked on foot to escape the hunger.
Many are suffering of hunger, as all the public services are closed. We are stressed and in a great danger. As they are defeated in the battlefield, our enemies are trying to eliminate us with hunger and thirst. That is why they are trying to block humanitarian aid such as food and medicine. We used to receive aid before, but now everything is blocked, so we find ourselves in a great danger.
Over 2.2 million Tigrayans displaced from different parts of Tigray are facing a similar fate as the blockade of medical supplies and food aid continues to put the lives of millions in danger.
The war in Tigray and the siege that followed has put many in crisis due to lack of food and medical aid. Members of Tesfayut HIV-positive Women Association are just one of the many affected due to the ongoing siege. Reporter Sablor Klama has more on this.
Data from 2017 shows that there were nearly 64,000 HIV-positive patients in Tigray. However, the conflict combined with an almost 4 months long siege has meant that HIV-positive patients are unable to get the necessary treatment they need. Members of the Tesfayut HIV-positive Women Association say that they have neither food to eat nor antiretroviral therapy. It wasn't a big deal to be HIV positive. Our lives were normal like everyone else's. Now, everything's difficult because we've run out of medication. What hurts even more is that our children are also unable to get the necessary treatment. We had a job and friends and family that encouraged us. We also had medication, but now the roads are blocked and the banks are closed. We're going to die if we don't get our medication soon. Mrs. Malka Asgada is a coordinator at the association. She says that the women were highly motivated for work and were productive members of the society before the start of the siege that has cut them off of much-needed medication. The children received proper care and attended school, but that hasn't been the case since the start of the siege. We don't even know how members of our association in 8 or 9 districts are dealing, if they're alive or dead. We know of some in towns and rural areas that have already passed away. We also have members that are suffering from chronic disease while they are HIV positive. This is very difficult and is putting the existence of our association into caution. Mrs. Melka also implored the international and local communities to help those in need. It's only people that can be there for one another when in need. I ask the local and international community to do what they can to save lives. This shall pass, but we need support until it does.
Ever since the war in Tigray broke out, the Ethiopian government and its allies have not only killed civilians, but also caused severe humanitarian crises. They displaced millions of people, raped women and girls, burned houses, vandalized properties, destroyed farming equipment, and looted food supplies. And now the 4-month-old siege is causing a very severe shortage of the basic supplies such as food, medicine, and fuel, worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis. Reporter Auraga Ratansai has more on this.
Ever since the war on Tigray broke out, the Ethiopian government and its allies have not only killed civilians, but also caused severe humanitarian crisis. They displaced millions of people, raped women and girls, burned houses, vandalized properties, destroyed farming equipment, and looted their food supplies. And now, the months-old siege is causing severe shortage of basic supplies such as food, medicine, and food, worsening an already dire humanitarian crisis. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, discloses on its report issued on 16 October 2021 that essential and life-saving assistance continue to be blocked from entering Tigray. Consequently, approximately 105,000 children under 5 years of age, including more than 54,000 girls, were screened during the reporting period for acute malnutrition, of whom 2,459, or about 2.3%, were diagnosed with severe acute malnutrition, compared to 2.1% a week earlier. Therefore, malnutrition among pregnant and lactating women continues to be very high, at about 63%. Another report by the UNICEF also uncovers the fact that some 18,600 children under the age of 5 in Tigray have been admitted for treatment for severe acute malnutrition from February to August this year, compared to 8,900 in 2020, which is a 100% increase. Part of the overall destruction of properties in Tigray was the destruction of health facilities. According to the Regional Health Bureau, more than 80% of the health facilities in the region are out of basic health service. Dr. Rie, Deputy Head of Tigray Health Bureau, says even the few functioning health facilities are now forced to stop providing all kinds of medical services due to complete depletion of medicine and medical equipment due to the months-old siege.
We have 2 referral hospitals in Tigray. They were providing medical services to people from neighboring regions like Afar and Amhara regions too. The ratio was estimated to be 1 referral hospital to 5 million people. Also, we had 14 general hospitals, 24 primary hospitals, 225 health centers, and 560 health posts in Tigray. Before the war broke out, the health facilities were functioning as per the standards set by the WHO. Now 80% of them have been destroyed. This means the service that had been provided by these health facilities are completely frozen and patients have gone out of basic medical service. In general, it can be said the health facilities have been destructed at full scale.
As part of the siege, the federal government has blocked critical public service infrastructures including banking, electricity, communication, transport, and others. To make things worse, humanitarian aid to Tigray is completely blocked and people are suffering from man-made hunger. Millions of people are starving to death, and many people are suffering from illnesses caused by acute malnutrition and absence of vaccination services.
We couldn't get vaccine service as per to our schedule, and we couldn't get medicines when our children get sick. Our children are dying due to shortage of medicine and malnutrition.
We are facing different health problems. We couldn't get medicine on time. Currently, there are no basic laboratory inputs. We are unable to make exam because there is no chemicals. We have been waiting here for a month, but we couldn't get the service we want. This is not just a problem. It is a disaster. I might get a medicine, but hundreds are wandering in search of medicine at drugstores only to find none.
There is acute shortage of medicine, including anti-pain. We have no medicine for the common cold, and there are no antifungal lubricants available in our hospital.
Sadly, patients and chronic illness like MDR, chronic antiretroviral treatment, ART, are dying as we couldn't provide them with the medication they need.
For me, it's unbearable to see patients dying on my side, for I can't provide them with food, medicine, and oxygen to save their life.
Patients with chronic illnesses are victims of scarcity of medicine and medical equipment in the health facility. They are exposed to severe health complications and many are dying. The problem is worse for mothers and children, says the health professionals.
Around 560 mothers are identified as underweighted, but there's nothing that we can do to help them, as there are no medicine, food, and other essential available in our hospital. Similarly, there are many children severely affected by acute malnutrition in our hospital. We used to provide them with energy food like plant plate, but we have nothing left.
Maqala Hospital had been providing medical service for thousands of patients, but currently the hospital has run out of medicine and medical equipment. It is facing difficulty in providing basic medical services to its patients. Dr. Filmon Mesfin is Chief Executive Officer of the hospital. He says their hospital has run out of medicines and other essentials to support mothers and children in need. He also expressed his deep concern that the problem has severe consequences on health and well-being of mothers and children. It will cause stunting, which in turn affects the mental and physical development of the future generation.
ሓደ ዘይተኸተበ ህፃን ብጣዕሚ ሕማም ናይ ምግላጽ ዕድሉ ብጣዕሚ ዝለዓለ እዩ።
Vaccines have run out. We are left with very small amounts of medicine at store, but it's negligible compared to pressing demands of the patients. Failing to get children vaccinated will have adverse effects on their destiny. It will expose them to various illnesses as their immune system gets weakened.
Ato Alamayo Gabramariam, CEO of Ethiopian Pharmaceutical Supply Maqala branch, on his part says that there is no medicine supplied to the agency at present and their store is empty now.
Medicines had been supplied from the main office in Addis Ababa, but we have not received any medicine for the last 5 to 6 months due to the siege, which also caused hunger to millions of children. We have no medicine to treat the children suffering from malnutrition and opportunistic illnesses.
Ato Alamayo called on the international community and aid organizations to put pressure on the Ethiopian government to lift the siege and allow medicine and humanitarian aid to enter Tigray. He also urged for the lifting of the blockade and resume the critical public services such as banking, electricity and telecom.
As you can see, these shelves used to hold medicine and medical equipment, but now they are empty. International humanitarian agencies should put pressure on the federal government to reopen the roads to Tigray. Otherwise, the blockage of humanitarian corridor will have a catastrophic consequence. Hence, the world should work to avoid further tragic scenario in Tigray. They should play a crucial role in averting the current catastrophe in Tigray.
And with that, we're going to wrap up the news for the hour. Next up, there's Getachew Redda's interview on Direct. I'm Maren from Tigray. Thank you for tuning in.